Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast where a real statistics professor
and his cousin Jared.
And the third wheel to this train, Jake.
gives you sports betting tips. I am Professor Sides. You can follow me and find all my picks on Twitter at Professor Sides. You can follow my cousin Jared on Twitter at Cousin Jared. And you can follow my friend Jake on Twitter at myfriend_Jake. Today is Friday, March 4th, 2022, and this episode covers today's best college basketball bets, except it's not. We're actually recording this on Thursday night, so if this episode feels different, it might go off the rails a little bit. Two of the three of us don't really drink, so there's minimal alcohol involved here, but we're recording this on a Thursday night. I'm at a sports analytics conference in Boston, so that's hence why we have the different background. So we've got a smaller slate for you here on Friday when this episode will drop for you, but we're covering this stuff on Thursday. That'll be kind of a recurring theme because some of the games we don't actually know some games we don't know who's playing, and or we'll find out literally while we're recording this episode. In case you're new here, I have built a mathematical model that predicts what the spread and total should be for every Division I college basketball game. And information along with a graded A, B, or C pick for all of today's games not covered in this episode is available in the Google Sheet linked in the show's description. A picks are the ones I love, B picks are the ones I like, and C picks are the leans. However, please remember that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to say the model will be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. And this is where I'd usually say how we did yesterday, but I don't know because yesterday is today.
You got to take it when you get it. But
there you go. Jake, I'm going to turn it to you. What's one thing we should know?
So right now is the time you can sleep, right? Sleep while you can, because starting tomorrow, Saturday, we have got just loaded Saturday, but just full with all great games. And then Sunday's got some important games, and after that, tickets start getting punched. So sleep while you can, because now's the time to start. After that, you got to watch all the games because you got to know who's in the tournament and who you're picking, so you can win that little bracket pool you're in.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we get to today's slate, a reminder, please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Subscribe or follow if you aren't yet. We appreciate that, and it helps us out greatly. Share with a friend if you know others in the game, and drop a comment if you're on Twitter or YouTube. We love those and try to respond to as many as we can. We're only going to cover 3 games here in our game breakdown segment because there's just not a lot happening on this Friday slate. We're going to start off with 6 p.m. Eastern. 5 p.m. Central, Buffalo is at Kent State. Kent State is a 2.5-point favorite with a total of 146. And I'm taking 2 plays on this one. I'm taking Buffalo plus the 2.5. I'm taking over 146 as well. The model thinks that this should be about a pick 'em and that the total should be more like 147. So a small edge there on the total, but I think with the way over's been playing, I think I still like this one to get over 146, especially with the way Buffalo's been playing, as they've kind of got their mojo rolling a little bit. It's mostly come on the offensive end where their point totals have been getting a little out of hand, and I kind of expect the same thing here in this one. Jake, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I'm on Buffalo here. They're 4-1 as an underdog this year, so that's kind of big because covering any of these small numbers is great. And then they are a really good offense. They're really putting it together. They're making 8 threes a game, and they're hitting them at about a 35% clip, which is fairly solid for a team. As a team, they're really improving, taking care of the ball. They're averaging about 10 in the last 3 versus the 13 all year. So they're really showing signs of improvement there, which helps their offense out, which helps them win these games. But they're not a great defense, not really even a good defense by any stretch, but they do force about 12 turnovers a game. So winning the turnover battle helps out, and they guard the 3-point arc well. So they hold teams to right about 30-31% from beyond the arc. So preventing upsets and helping you upset teams, keeping the 3 ball down really helps. They beat Kent State by 13 at Kent State, and their leading scorer, Jonathan Williams. Not really sure how to spell his name. He's got 2 E's in it and looks like Jonathan. But he went for 25, and Kent State's leading scorer Carey went for 9. I see that being very repeatable because Kent State is a terrible shooting team. They're hitting 31% from 3, so right around where Buffalo holds them. And their slow pace really ups their turnover percentage. They're turning it over about 18% of the time, giving this really good Buffalo offense a few more possessions. I think they Buffalo pushes the pace, gets it over, and controls the pace here, and covers this. Probably even comes out with a win.
Yeah, and you mentioned that first matchup. It was a little bit lower scoring, but that was back when Buffalo wasn't quite playing the same way they've been playing this last month. Cousin Jared, what do you have for us?
So, I mean, y'all just like teed up my points perfectly here. I
I
appreciate
was
that.
thinking he might, yeah.
Yeah, so y'all know exactly where I'm going with this. I am on the over as well, over 146. Yeah, so the last time these two teams played, the total was only 115, but Kent State only shot 19% from three. Buffalo only shot 23% from three, and Buffalo also only shot 42% from the free throw line in that game. So there were a lot of points left on the table there. Buffalo's gone over the 146 number in 8 of their last 9 games, as the professor mentioned. The offense is really rolling. And also, just some added reassurance there. The model rarely says play a Buffalo over. It's having a hard time kind of catching up to how well their offense has been playing. But the model actually does say that this is an overplay. So, if you don't trust just the last matchup information, go with the model. The model's even seeing this as an overplay. So I feel good about the over 146.
Yeah, you make a good point. The model really did struggle. Buffalo just like turned a switch and started
Yeah.
going over like crazy, and
Yep.
it's taken the totals are finally going up and up and up and up, and it's finally the model's finally realizing like, whoa, this is a real over team now.
Yep.
Whereas a month and a half ago they were not, and
Yeah.
as someone who's watching this right now who knows the program probably knows exactly what happened. The coach did something or another right. I'm not privy to that information, but yeah, they definitely changed up how they're playing, and I think it's led to better results for them as well. On top of it being friendly,
Yeah.
if you're an over better.
It seems to me Coach let the boys go play instead of trying to force them into something. He just said, "Okay, this is what y'all like to do," and leaned into it. I've watched a few games, so can't say that for sure, but that's what it feels like to me.
And if you're wrong, I still like what you said. It sounds good, so we're gonna roll with it, right? So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Which takes us to our second game here, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Richmond at St Bonaventure. The Bonnies are a 3.5-point favorite in a line that makes absolutely no sense to me. I've got an A pick on Richmond getting 3.5 points. We faded the Bonnies a lot. It's mostly worked out pretty well for us. I think Richmond has a good chance to go on the road and get the win. If not, keep it close and cover the 3.5. So whether you like to split your bet between money line and taking the points, or whether you just want to play a little safer, take the points, or just go money line, I think you got a lot of good options with Richmond here. And I'm also going to take the over 138. We've got fewer games here, so I'm going to give you more picks, right? I like Richmond plus 3.5. I like over 138. The model thinks it should be about 140 in what should be a coin toss game. It's projecting about a 70 to 70 type game. So I think over 138 makes a lot of sense here. Jake, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm going on Richmond. I mean, we've talked about it all year. St. Bonaventure's thin. St. Bonaventure can't. An injury could be disastrous for him. Well, they had that happen. The guy missed one of their starters. Missed last game. They lose by 17 to VCU, where VCU likes to push the pace. He's questionable for this Richmond game, so that's. I mean, he's not going to come back at 100%. So now you're leading on a bench that they may have played a 40 minutes total during the year. So it's going to be real tough for them to lean on one of those guys that's just not been in this position. Richmond's coming off an absolutely heartbreaking loss to Dayton, which I was happy about, but that put money in our pocket. But they've won the previous matchup by 10. They really didn't shoot the ball well. They shot 26% from three and only made 6 threes when they averaged closer to 9. So I think there's plenty of room for them to win this game and win it fairly easy. I think with the way everything's going, Burton, who's an incredible player for him, went off for 36. Richmond had zero clue St. Bonaventure had zero clue what to do with him. They couldn't figure it out. So I think that's going to happen again. And they don't turn the ball over, and that's really the most impressive part here. They're 10th in the nation with 9.8 a game, and then that works out to only 14.2 of their percent of their possessions. So they really value the ball, and we've seen that with other teams like main teams like Wisconsin, and that when they value the ball like that and you don't give the other team possession, you can win at any kind of pace. And so I think that's what's going to happen here, and I think they're even going to push the pace here to kind of get into that St. Bonaventure bench.
That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned that last game for the Bonnies. I did watch that one, have it on audio for a little bit. And I believe the quote from the head coach was something to the extent of the lack of depth isn't an issue until it's an issue, or it was some quote along those lines, and I was like, man, that is just living on the edge. It should have came back to bite them in that last game, and I think it's got a good chance to do it again. Cousin Jared, what do you have for us?
Well, since this is a basketball podcast, so you've already had two double doubles. I think that would be called a quadruple double. So let's make it
There you
the
go.
sextuple double here. Okay,
The word.
I'm taking the points with Richmond here, and I'm going the over 138. Both of you made much better points than I could. I would just say if I had to lean one way, I would probably lean towards the over 138 in this spot, just because again, overs have been doing so well the past month, really, that I just couldn't pass up a total at this number, getting that kind of edge. So again, I like taking the points with Richmond and the over, but if I had to choose one, I would take the over 138.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And then the last game here for our game breakdowns before we get to some of our gimmicks at the end. Southern Illinois at Drake, and what might be the game of the night. Should be a close one, should be an interesting one. Drake is a short 3.5-point favorite. That does say at. It's not at. It's a neutral site game, so I should say versus. Total of 127. This is in the conference tournament there for them. I'm doing two more picks for you here. I've got Drake minus 3.5. I think they can get outside of that field goal. Took 2 dogs early. I'm taking the favorite here. And then I've got over 127. The model thinks it should be more like 129. I'm a little bit more nervous about this total, and Jody may talk about this as well. I'm a little more nervous because we've seen with conference tournament games, the totals get really variable. In general, they tend to be a little bit lower, but then teams play a little more conservative with respect to the tie. So the probability the game goes to overtime increases, or in some teams' cases goes 3 overtimes, right? We've got a couple of those already, it seems like. And so you end up with some of these overtime games going crazy high, but then you have some that teams just really clamp down and play super conservative. So the totals kind of get a little more variable in these conference tournaments. But the number here, it just seems like it's a little too low and that we should be taking the over there. Jake, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I'm with you on Drake, and it scares me on this one. These two teams have played twice before. The road team won each time. Drake lost by 1 and then won by 2, or 1 by 1 and then lost by 2. The last game of the regular season was the last matchup in Southern Illinois, won by 2. So, man, this is going to be a really good game to watch. These two teams are really going to go at it. But I think the difference here is Drake seems to be a little more balanced team. Southern Illinois really depends on Domask. He it's really, really good, but he leads them in almost every category. I think besides assists, and steals, because he's a big guy. He's points, rebounds, blocks, and everything else. And he shoots the ball very well. Drake actually has the 45th ranked in offense in terms of efficiency, and they're a really good free throw shooting team here. In the last 3, they're hitting 82, almost 83%. So I think those kind of numbers are going to push this one over, and then with a little bit of help here in the conference tournament, like a little more extra motivation to get there, because I think that last game there wasn't much for standings. They knew they were playing each other. Again, you're most likely going to play each other here again, so I think neither team was really trying to do much. But the biggest difference, and this is what I'm leaning on, is the free throw shooting. Like I mentioned, Drake being at 86, Southern Illinois is on the opposite end. They're at 69. So I'm hoping those points kind of come over, and a few turnovers go Drake's way, and they get it. But this line scares me. I think the books have pegged it pretty close to where it should be, and it makes me nervous.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Like I said, I'm laying the 3.5, but my model makes it just under 4.5. So there's not a huge edge there. So I think you're right. I think the books are pretty close. I think there's a little bit of value on Drake, but this number opened at 3, and I like 3 a whole lot more than I like 3.5, just because 3 is a very common ending for tight games. Cousin Jared, what do you have for us?
Okay, so just a quick recap on everything we just talked about there. So, Professor, we're up to an octuple double at this point.
I don't even know anymore. At some point, you're going to come up with words I don't even know.
Okay, sure. We're up to an octuple double now. Yeah, and Jake, you're scared. I got that from you, right? So I'm scared of my pick on this game too. I am going the over 127. I can't pretend like I feel great about it, and I'm going to give you some information here, and it may not make you feel any better, the listener, about it either, but I'm going to give you the information. So in conference play, Southern Illinois has had games go under the total by 12 points, 17 points, 20 and a half, 41 and a half points, and 35 points. So that seems, wow, Cousin Jared, you are crazy. Why are you taking the over in this game? Well, mostly because the model says to, but they also had games go over the total by 12 and a half, 26 and a half, 16 and a half, 19 and a half, and 25 and a half points. So all of this to say, who knows? The model says go over, so I'm going with it. The only thing I can say is you will probably know the outcome of this play like 5 minutes into the second half, and so you can just tidy it up, take it home early. You won't have to watch the whole game.
I was gonna say that's the benefit to taking the total in this one. It's a later start, right? If you're on the East Coast, it's a 9:30 start. If you're Central Time, 8:30 start. But yeah, by halftime, you have a pretty good idea because based off what you
Yeah.
just said, it's either going to be 21-19 at the half, or it's going to
Yep.
be 41-39 at the half. And
Exactly.
you're going to be like, I've either got my money, I can ignore it, or there's no way I'm going to bed. This one's a loser.
Exactly.
All right, and that takes us to our solo Jake segment. A little bit of a different twist on this one today. I'm just gonna let you have the floor, Jake, and see what you have for us.
Yeah, since we're doing this the night before, there's no lines to really pick out that we haven't covered that it make me feel really good. That I want to put my reputation on the line here, but I mentioned these three or four games here that are really big, are really important games. You've got Murray State playing SEMO, and no clue what the line is. They haven't released that yet, but it's a huge, very important game. The first bid thief opportunity for SEMO because Murray State's in. I don't know how much drive they have to win this. They won the first matchup with SEMO by 26 or 27, something crazy up there. It was like they put up over 100 on them. And then they won the last one on a furious comeback by 2 and only scored 70. But there wasn't much for them to play for. And like I said, there's not much other than the conference championship that they've won several times on the line here. So there's a chance SEMO sneaks in and do it. I think Murray has it, and they've got KJ Williams, who's probably one of the best not talked about players out there. And so he's fun to keep an eye on. He'll be big in March in the Madness tournament. And then we got Loyola Chicago and Bradley. This one's wild. So the line's at 6 right now, which is about where it should be. Both games have gone we're a difference of 7 with them splitting during the year. Bradley winning the last one. And if Bradley wins this, Loyola Chicago's tournament hopes are done. I believe most people have them right there on the last 4 in. So I think if they lose this, they're done. And so it's a very important game with a team they've had a hard time with because when Loyola won, it went to overtime for them to win by 7. So Loyola is the better team and should handle their business, but Bradley is, for some reason, got their number this year. I don't know matchup-wise or not. And then North Carolina, A&T, and Longwood is just interesting because the only one loss that Longwood had all year in conference was to North Carolina A&T. So I don't know why. I don't really care for North Carolina A&T. They've made me a little bit of money this year. Haven't really watched them. Longwood should handle it very easy. But it's just interesting for they have to go through the only team in conference that beat them. And then what's looking to be like Belmont and Moorhead is going to be a big, big game because the only hope for either team to get in is to win the tournament. And so this is going to be super important for either team to win. And hopefully they're hoping for SEMO because that's a much easier game than running in the Murray. And I think the OVC is kind of hoping for that too, to possibly get 2 teams in instead of just the one. So it's big there. I don't know what the line will be there because Moorhead game's not over yet. But it's not over, but it's over. Last I looked, it was pushing close to 20. So I think they've got it in the bag. But it's just a big game to keep an eye out for because right now you're starting to get bid thieves and things like that, and could be fun for March. Madness starting early.
Yeah, I think that Belmont Moorhead game will be interesting. I think it might be one of the most fun games of the night. If Murray State takes care of business, it may not mean a lot because it may just be who gets to lose to Murray in the championship game. But otherwise, I think both of those teams are clearly the second, third best teams in the conference. But obviously, they're a clear step behind Murray State. And since everything is wonky on this episode anyway, I'm going to throw a real wrench into things. In the solo Jake segment, I'm going to give y'all a pick. I'm going over Loyola in that game. Loyola Bradley 130.5. We talked about the totals in conference tournament plays being a little bit shakier, but that number I think is too low. Loyola is a team that slows down the pace, but I think the way that Bradley has played them, I think this number goes over 130.5. So just because everything's wonky, I'm giving you a professor pick here in the solo Jake segment.
I think in the two previous games they were up closer to 140. I know the overtime game was over 140, but I think the second one was like in the mid 60s. For both teams.
Yep. And that takes us to our overtime A plays. It's A play singular. I have one Eastern Michigan at 6 p.m. Central. I'm taking them plus 8.5 at Miami of Ohio. Both teams have been a letdown. They've both underperformed my model expectations by an average of about 2 points per game. So Eastern Michigan hasn't been good to us, but Miami of Ohio hasn't either. I think 8.5 is a good number here. I think it's more likely that the fouls at the end of the game, because we assume Miami will win, don't take us over that number. So I like 8.5. If it's down to 7, that's a number I don't like nearly as much. But I think Eastern Michigan can hang in there, lose by single digits, and then at that point I'm just crossing my fingers it's not 9, because that sort of thing always seems to happen. And I've got a B-side for you, my best B-side. For our Friday evening here, 5 p.m. Central. I'm taking another MAC game, Ball State -2 at Western Michigan. I'm 3-1 backing Ball State, and I'm 2-6 fading them. So life has gone better when I've been on this side of Ball State, so I like backing them rather than fading them. It's a short number. I think they go on the road and get the job done. Jake, you've already had your spiel. You have no buzzer beaters for us, but Cousin Jared, you have one that you want to talk about.
I do have one. Let's go to one of my favorite basketball conferences, and honestly, probably the most underrated big conference out there. I'm talking about the Big South, people. Let's get pointsy with our afternoon. Let's go over 145.5 in Charleston Southern and South Carolina Upstate. Charleston Southern, the over is 5-1 the past 6 games, so let's keep that going. Over 145.5 in that game.
Hey, that's a fun tournament to watch. Three of the 4 games with the overtime, and then Charleston Southern won on a buzzer beater. So that's, a tournament's fun to watch. Middle of your day, take a longer lunch and throw that game on, see what's going on.
Yep. Couple afternoon games tomorrow, at least that makes the Friday slate a little bit better. Today, right? You're watching this today. Again, everything's wonky with this recording the night before. That's all we've got for you. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. Reminder, check out that Google Sheet for picks and totals on all of today's games not covered in this show. If you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button to get a new episode every weekday and Saturdays during the college basketball season, dropped right into your feed. Same setup for Saturday's show. It'll be a recorded show, but comment on the show. Drop us a note on Twitter. We'll respond back and let you know how we're feeling about all of the games on Saturday. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.